Hello, and welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to look at an introduction to what are called conic sections, also called quadratic relations. To start us off, I've drawn what's called a double-napped cone. Now, you're probably familiar with a cone, and it's kind of like two cones with their little peaks put together. This point here, by the way, is called the vertex. So here we have a double-napped cone, and that's where the name conics comes from. It comes from cones. And what we're going to do, after we name a few key components of this double-napped cone, is we're going to see where these conic sections actually come from. Well, first of all, let's just get some of the vocabulary out of the way. First of all, there's something that's called the generator of the cone. What you have to picture is, picture this guy here like a stick. Okay, so I'll just highlight that guy. And picture this stick kind of rotating its way around. And that's what's making this double-napped cone. Well, this stick has a fancy name. It's called a generator. Okay, so that's the stick that's actually making the cone. Then we have kind of the part of this that the stick is revolving around. And that would be kind of a line like so. And this line is perpendicular to the base. So if you drew a line across here in the base of the cone, if we drew a perpendicular straight down, this is called the central axis. So this little dotted line there is called the central axis. So we've got the base, which is a circle at the top, central axis, and then this stick that's generating the double-napped cone. So these are kind of the parts of the cone. Now what I'm going to do is show you where conic sections come from. What you have to picture is the following. A plane, or like a piece of paper or something, is cutting into the cone in certain ways. Now remember, we're dealing with a three-dimensional object here. So what you're really talking about is the intersection of that plane with the cone itself. So we're going to start off with a very simple one here. What if your plane was perpendicular to this central axis? So it was exactly flush along here like this. What kind of an intersection would you get? Now, basically what we're talking about is what's kind of drawn out here already, this shape here. Well, if you think about it, the shape you're going to get is a circle. Okay, so that's one of the conic sections. I'll make a little room here to list these. Don't really need these anymore. So our first conic section is the circle. Now what you have to picture, and I'm going to, maybe I'll erase this as well and just redraw it. What we're now going to do, then we'll just take the bottom half of our double-napped cone. Here it is. Okay. What I'm now going to do is take my plane. Okay, here comes my plane, and I'm going to give it a bit of a tilt. So it's not exactly 90 degrees to the central axis. There's got a bit of a tilt to it. Well, what kind of a shape am I going to get? So let's see. Maybe it would cut across like this. You might get something that looks like this. And then, of course, down the back. Okay? Some kind of a shape like that. What are we going to get here? Well, if you think about it, you've got a circle at the bottom, and you give that a bit of a tilt, you're going to get an ellipse, or kind of an oval shape. Okay, so we now have two conic sections. Well, let's give it a little bit more of a tilt and see what we get. So let's just redraw this with more of a tilt. So here's our cone. And here's our plane. We're giving it a bit of a tilt. We're going to give it a little bit more of a tilt, so much so that at the one end here, it's actually not catching. Okay, so what used to be sitting kind of like this is tilted to the point where it's not catching. So what you have looks kind of like this. Comes up like so, and then down that side. Now I can't draw it terribly well, but enough for you maybe to get the idea that what we have Well, it's open at this end. If you think about it, it's not a completely joining shape. What we have is a parabola. And then there is one more, and keep in mind, this is a double-napped cone. So let me just redraw this. Our double-napped cone. What happens now? We've got our circle, we've given it some tilt, and that gave us an ellipse. Tilted it a little bit more so that it's not catching down there. That was the parabola. What if you tilt it a little bit more? Well, you're going to get a kind of a funny-looking shape. Let's see if I can draw it here. It kind of goes like this. Okay, kind of a parabola shape down here, but you're also going to catch up here. So you're going to get kind of a similar thing up here. Okay, so not the greatest drawing in the world, but oh well, it's something. You got kind of a almost parabola looking thing here and almost a parabola looking thing here. So you really got two halves to this thing. And it is called a hyperbola. Now, those are the conic sections. There's only these ones, or quadratic relations, whatever you want to call them. So, I think we'll take a little break, and we're going to come back and have a look at an old friend that you might have already seen, which is the circle.